So today I'm going to be showing you the June section from my coverlet of comfort, and I'm assuming by this point you've already seen at least some of my earlier videos, just so that nobody feels left out if this is the first video you've seen. Basically what I've been doing this year is I've been following along a tutorial and making a separate piece for each month of the year, which will be joined together to make a coverlet or a quilt. And each one of those sections depicts something related to my life or my place in the wider world. And it's been guided by Kathryn on her YouTube channel, which is K3N Cloth Tales. And as always, there's a link in the description below and a little bit more detailed explanation of the project. So as I said, I'm going to be showing you June today, and then we're going to be halfway through the project. And that feels kind of strange to say, because obviously I'm showing you June, but in reality it's actually November. So there's just November and December left to go for me. So I kind of need to get a move on with sharing the rest of these sections that I've already stitched. So far I've got the January, February and March pieces attached to each other. And I've got the April and the May pieces attached to each other. So after I've shown you June today, I can add that one on, and then I can attach this row of 3 to the previous row of 3, and then at the end I will show you, the halfway point of what it looks like. And I'm really excited myself to see those 6 panels all done together. So as you will have already seen from the thumbnail, the theme for June was flora. And in her videos during the month, Kathryn showed various different ways of depicting some very cute flowers and using different kind of elements and different stitches. It's been a while since I've watched that set of videos, so I can't necessarily remember all the details clearly. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I've wanted all the sections of this quilt to tell a story or to share a memory from my life. And I was thinking about flora, flowers. How can I make that personal to me? So apart from the fact that flora used to actually be one of my nicknames, I didn't really know how could I relate this theme of flora to me and a memory from my own life. Because I'm not a keen gardener, I don't even really have a favourite flower. So what I decided to do was that I would depict my wedding bouquet. And at the time when I got married, I decided that I wanted to have a silk bouquet. Well, it's not actually silk, but fabric flowers, because I like the idea of being able to keep it. But then after I got married, it got packed away in a box to keep it safe, and it was put up in the loft, and it was in the loft for years. And it was only after my husband died, and then I was thinking about the fact that, I had the fake flowers because I wanted to keep them and enjoy them, and I'm not enjoying them while they're in a box up in the loft. So I decided to get them down, and I've had them out on display in my bedroom. And I thought, well, they might fade, they're gonna get dusty, bits might fall off, but I thought it's better for that to happen and for me to enjoy seeing them every day in the meantime, rather than, as I say, they're just shoved away in a box. So let me show you. This is my bouquet, and it probably is a bit dusty. And there are a couple of little bits that have dropped off. But like I say, I just enjoy seeing it every day. So let me turn the camera around and I'll show you how I've depicted this in the fabric, and it's a very simplified version. I hope the lighting is going to be okay on this video. It's only 3:30 in the afternoon, but it's already getting dark. So yeah, so this is my bouquet, and as you can see, most of it is roses, but there are these little white kind of filler flowers, and there are also these little, I don't even know what you call them, little sprays with little fake pearls on. And then the leaves, some of the leaves are green and some of the leaves are more autumnal, because we got married in September and I wanted to have an autumnal bouquet. And then there's also these kind of long, kind of grassy bits at the bottom. So if I just put that to one side for a second. And then, as previously, this stitched piece is approximately 16 inches by 16 inches. And the background cloth is silk, and it's actually leftover fabric from when I made my wedding dress. So that in itself, you know, I probably could have picked a colour to help the flowers stand out more. But of course, on the day, I was holding the bouquet, you know, in front of me and wearing this dress. So it seemed appropriate to do the flowers on this background, which is from my wedding dress, or left over from making my wedding dress. So for the flowers themselves, I started off by looking up online stencils of roses, and I cut out a paper template, which is basically the reverse of a stencil. So the bit which is fabric is what I'd cut out in paper to start with. And initially I did 3 different sizes, and then as I worked my way down and the roses were getting slightly smaller, I was just trimming bits off of the paper templates. So as far as I can recall, no 2 of these flowers are actually the same exact template. As I had 3 templates to start with, and I even was like mixing and matching some of the petals from the different templates. These 2 roses, I did the applique of the petals just with like a whip stitch or an overcast stitch, whatever the appropriate term is. But I think all the others I did with blanket stitch. And the little white fill-in flowers, I kind of had a couple of different ideas of how I could do that. And then in one of her videos, Kathryn had done Suffolk puffs, which I think are also sometimes called yo-yos. And so that's what I did here, these little white circles. And mine weren't very neat, like where it was kind of drawn up together, I kind of had like a big lump on top. So I've kind of hidden that lump with these white buttons, and then I've done a green cross stitch in the middle of the buttons, because as I say, these little flowers have got a little green dot in the middle. So that's that's what I used the Suffolk puffs and the buttons to represent that. On Kathryn's, instead of buttons, she'd used the little shisha mirrors, where you kind of stitch around the mirror to kind of hold it down. And I didn't have any of those, and I didn't want to go out and buy any, so I thought, right, well, I'll just stick with the little white buttons, because that kind of matches my little white flowers anyway. And then obviously I've done the leaves in a very similar way, where I've just done blanket stitch around the edge, and then I've just done a back stitch for the main veins on the leaves, and again some are green, some of this kind of reddish brown colour for the autumn. And then at the bottom end I've done these lines of chain stitch to represent the leaf, the grassy bits at the bottom end of my bouquet. And then here we've got little glass beads. I wish I'd used different beads. When the beads were just on their own, they looked white, but they're actually slightly see-through. And then once they were stitched down onto the fabric, they've ended up looking a bit dull and grey, but I didn't have any white beads. And again, you know, been trying to use the things that I've already got, and that was for these little sprays with the fake pearls. And basically the only other stitched element is in between the flowers. I've done these multiple lines of running stitch in various shades of pink, and the darker red around the small red roses. Yeah, so I think what I did was I did the first couple of rows of running stitch around the flower in a matching colour, and then any other gaps were just filled in. And that was kind of in a vain attempt to try and make it look a bit denser, because obviously this is very flat. I mean, even though there is a little bit of dimension with these little white ones and the beads, but the bouquet is very three-dimensional. So I wanted to kind of try and fill in a little bit of density, and from a distance it probably doesn't even notice, but I know it's there. So as I've said, it's a much shorter explanation than previous videos, because it's essentially just one story. It's my wedding bouquet, but I will just tell you one little story. On my wedding day, when we were having our photos taken, and there was Trevor and I and the photographer, and he was taking photos of us in a local park, and all of a sudden Trevor ran off and me and the photographer were like, what's going on? Anyway, what it was there was a lady walking through the park with a pushchair with a little baby, and the path that she was on, she was going up towards some steps, and Trevor ran off to help her carry the pushchair up the steps. And I just thought, you know, what a lovely thing to do. Like, even though it was our wedding day and we were having the wedding photos taken, he was seeing somebody that was struggling and rushed off to help. So there you go, just one little extra story that I squeezed in for this one. So I'm going to go off and do a little bit of sewing, joining this on to the previous blocks, and if you hang around you'll see what it looks like with half of the year done. Excuse the poor artificial lighting, but this is what I've done so far. So you'd already seen those three joined together, and then I've joined these three, and the top part has already got the strip along the bottom, which I will overlap here, and then I'll also add another strip along the bottom here, but I'll show you that all finished tomorrow in the daylight. So here we are the next day, and the first 6 pieces are all joined together. As I mentioned in a previous video, the edging on the sides will be the very last thing I do after all 12 pieces are together. And you might notice at this end we've got a little bit of a step here, and at the other end again, but in the opposite direction. So you might think, why didn't I shift that bottom one across? And I just think it's going to be easier to hide a discrepancy on this long edge rather than where we've got this cross section in the middle. So I wanted to make sure that these cross sections lined up as neatly as possible, because it is all hand stitched and it is going to be a bit wonky. And I thought I didn't actually mention how I was joining these strips on, and they are just done just with running stitch, just overlapping the edges. So there you go, the first 6 months is done. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've watched all 6 videos up to this point, thank you very much. And I hope you'll stick around while I catch up with showing you the rest of what I've done so far this year. Alright, thanks a lot. See you soon.